Is anyone gonna make a drink with me? Am I the only person?
Oh yeah.
All right. I'm gonna show you what I'm making here.
What do we got, George?
Got a little Casamigos tequila. I'm like almost out on this bottle. You can see it's been a hell of a quarantine over here.
It looks like water.
That's what it tastes like.
Where are you?
I'm drinking coffee.
George, where are you now?
I'm in DC right now. In fact, I'd show you the White House if I could get outside.
Really?
Are you that close?
Yeah, I'm super close. I'm on like 16th, so like I see the president or the vice president ride down all the time. It's a lot of fun.
Are you engaged yet?
Is he bike to work?
How close is Sam to get you to pop the question?
Sam kindly left. I tried to get her to stay and join the cocktail hour, and she said absolutely not. She told me to put on a shirt and left.
That worked.
At first.
Yeah.
At first.
Oh man, Chris, how's everything in Florida, man?
It's good. I'm sweating like a pig. I almost didn't make happy hours. I'm the one that suggested it. Almost missed it because my 3 mile time is slowing a bit here. So I'm sitting here sweating like a pig, and after jumping in the pool, and that was it.
Oh,
so you guys would love it though. But I've been trying to do this mock draft thing. I'm starting today. So I've got up to about 50 players, right? So I'm thinking I can survive through the first round and at least not totally embarrass myself. When you start doing it, I have a whole new respect for you guys. Ritter, all you guys. I mean, it is, things start popping into your brain. You're like, there's no way that's going to happen. But then you go, all right, why wouldn't that happen? And so when you start looking back, it has to happen to teams that draft players too. When they look back at the end of their draft going, how did I get this guy? How did he end up on my team, right? I mean, that has to happen to some extent when this thing's over.
Chris, the trick is James. Make shit up. You just make shit up's the trick. You don't have
Nobody's been doing that
any
longer
analysis.
than I have. Renner, I know you're good at it, but believe me, I've been doing it longer than you have.
You made up the Goff trade, right? The big trade up by the Rams a few years ago. Nailed
that
it.
was the most ungodly thing of all time. Everybody thought I had some inside knowledge, and it was a total lark. It shook up the Rams so badly that I did that. They were in there looking for who the mole was, who leaked the information. I'm like, guys, poor Leslie. I said, I totally made it up. I totally made up what I thought it would cost, who could possibly do it, what it would cost. I totally made it up. So, yeah, it wasn't good. But Renner, your thing, I'm just telling you, this draft guide is off the charts. And maybe my favorite part of the whole thing.
Don't let it get to his head.
That's all right. I'm not paying him anything, so they can go to his head. So at the end of this thing, if anybody who has the draft guide that hasn't made it to the last whatever page this thing starts on, the team by team, and that is like the godsend of all godsends. If you're trying to do a mock draft or you're trying to do anything like that thing is gold.
That was so I remember that they had a very similar thing in a draft guide I got as a kid. I can't remember who put it out, maybe like Athlon or something, like some company that maybe doesn't even exist anymore, had a draft guide that had team pages like that. And I remember like studying the Packers team page to see who, where the needs were on their team. So good Lord, Riggins make an appearance.
Is your dog going to hop on? How many pages of the draft guide did Riggins write?
He's been nothing but a pain in my ass this whole draft season, barking out the window.
For those of you who don't know, Riggins, Mike's dog, has gained like 40 pounds in the quarantine. It's like the size.
That's not true.
Looks like
a dog
mini
from Van
school
Wilder.
bus.
No time to walk
Can
him
barely
or what?
walk. Solly, you've joined us. Solly, how you
Solly
doing?
made it.
Yeah, I was searching through our mini portals for the link to join the happy hour.
Pivot
right?
to Slack.
The only important thing is that you have a drink.
I do. That's
What'd you go with?
the old-fashioned, the old go-to, right?
There's a favorite.
There you
There's
go.
a favorite right there.
Look at that dog. Look at that
Yeah.
monster.
So, yeah. If we weren't quarantined, I would invite everyone over for a drink, but we have to practice safely, right?
Yes.
We'll make it at some point. I feel like Riggins could be an offensive tackle prospect.
Well, no, Riggins is a running back. It's back to the, it's sort of paying homage.
Eddie Lacy.
Hey, I checked out Eddie Lacy's Instagram, I want to say a couple weeks or actually maybe a month ago because I was curious. And dude, he's lost a bunch of weight.
Really?
He's in like legit shape now. Yeah.
Why now? Why now?
I have no idea. I guess he's not living in Wisconsin anymore. I don't know. But he looked like he was really doing well. I was happy because Eddie Lacy was a guy that I always ended up with on my fantasy team. And so I watched an inordinate amount of Packers games, hoping for Eddie Lacy to go nuts.
So the next time we speak with Mike McCarthy, you have to ask him about the feud between. It was just a little sort of verbal sparring between he and Mike Tomlin, because remember, Eddie Lacy came out the same year as Le'Veon Bell, and they went back and forth over who was the better back. And I remember both coaches kind of sparring over it. And I ended up calling the Packers-Steelers game. And so I'm asking Mike Tomlin in the production meeting, who's got the better back? And if you remember the rookie year, Eddie Lacy, I think he set franchise records for rushing with Green Bay in his first season. And Le'Veon Bell was hurt most of the time, so he didn't perform as well. And Mike Tomlin stood on the table for Le'Veon Bell saying, look, in the end, we got the better back. And then he went down this laundry list of why. I'll never forget it.
Well, Le'Veon
I still think Eddie Lacy's worth a Christian McCaffrey-like contract, honestly. Pay him that money and make it weight, give him the weight incentives. I think you can make it work. I think Eric's on board with that as well.
Well, Austin,
I'm always on board with paying running backs more money.
Do we get hate mail from running backs or their agents?
I think we have. I don't know if we want to bring it up necessarily, but it's definitely we don't get a ton of love for it for sure.
I owe you a drink, Austin, because you did approve me to write the 49ers prototype backfield a week earlier before he signed the contract.
There you go. Perfect.
So we were ahead of the curve.
We should we got a question actually about Christian McCaffrey.
There you go.
We should fire it up. So Tyler, whenever you want to roll that in here, who's this from? Okay, Matt, run it.
Matt Rule.
So I've heard all the arguments as to why it was a bad idea for the Panthers to give Christian McCaffrey that big deal. I want to know what has to happen for Christian McCaffrey to prove all the naysayers wrong.
Move to wide receiver.
That's my take. I think he has to be as productive and literally run at wide receiver. Like, you have to move him in the slot and the outside. I mean, that's the only way.
What slot receiver is worth $18 million a year?
Michael Thomas.
I mean, the issue with McCaffrey is that his average depth of target's 1/2 a yard, right? So
that's the problem. Right,
you're almost always sort of throwing the ball underneath to him and hoping that it's almost always a bad situation when he's getting the ball.
Yeah, you need to move him to the slot more or less full time, and then you need to actually make him run wide receiver patterns, use him more vertically, so that when you are passing him the ball, it's actually a bigger needle mover for the offense, and he has the threat that you can move him into the backfield and run when you're playing him just as a receiver, and you're basically not honoring the run game at all. Like, use that matchup problem, but don't just like give him these dinky underneath flare, passes, anything underneath that's not actually getting anywhere.
For anybody who has just stumbled into this conversation, give them some basis. The one I always use for our running back hate, which is I'm going to blame on Austin. But so it is effectively, so the average pass play, right? The average pass play, not completion, not anything else. The average pass play is somewhere around 7 yards. The average run play, including losses, fumbles, whatever, is somewhere around 4 yards, right? Am I close to the logic of why this is?
Here's the best way to put it into context, because there's still the people will say, wait, run plays happen on short yardage where you can pick up a valuable first down. So you can take that into context, and mathematically you can tease it out this way. You can say, does the average run play get you closer to scoring on that drive, or does it move you further away? And on average, a run play actually moves you further away from scoring, whereas a pass play gets you closer to scoring. So like, even taking into account successful runs on short yardage and all that stuff, like, it's still the case that average run play is hurting your team, whereas a passing play is what's getting you closer to scoring.
Here's the two I get thrown back at me. So are you saying I should just go all empty sets and not have a running back, right? That you should not line up with a running back in the backfield because there's a potential you're going to hand it off and it's going to be worse than a pass play. And then what does that mean for my protections? I've got a $1 billion quarterback and I have to protect him. And if I don't run the ball, or if I don't have a secondary blocker back there when somebody needs help or a chip or a pickup or a blitz or whatever, and I get my quarterback killed, then I'm dead.
No. Yeah, but I mean, I think that the issue here is not – so there's a couple of reasons for the running back hate. The first one is the one that George said, which is that running most of the time gets you further away and passing gets you closer. But the other issue is that even when you run, the offensive efficiency is not that sensitive to who the running back is. So you can go and get Gus Edwards and undrafted, and he's just as good as Mark Ingram, and the pay differential is nowhere near close to each other. So I don't think we're advocating for no backs playing at all. What we're advocating for is not to 10x their salary the way that teams are going to with Henry and are going to with McCaffrey, because, you know, when it's different for other positions. So like quarterback, you make your quarterback twice as good, your offense is probably 3 or 4 times as good. When you make your running back twice as good, your offense is like barely better than it was before, even though the price is about twice as much. So that's really the issue. It's not necessarily like running backs shouldn't play. It's that you shouldn't pay up for the ones that you think are awesome.
So it's the most replaceable position. That's what you're telling me.
The two running backs in the Super Bowl were Raheem Mostert and Damian Williams. But you'd also want to say this, which is like, hey, there are times where running should happen more than it currently does. Like teams do not run enough on short yardage situations. 3rd and short, for example, teams throw away too often. And I think a large part of that is aversion to going for it on 4th downs. But I'm not at all. I love the running back position, actually. I think it's one of the most fun to watch, and I think it makes the game better. You just shouldn't cannibalize your team's salary structure to pay one.
Well, and the fact that play action works really well no matter who the running back is means that you should have a running back on the field. He just should be – and honestly, like Damian Williams is, 2 years, $8 million? I think that's – the Chiefs are getting a great value there because, as we've seen, he's capable of probably being the MVP of the Super Bowl. But he's –
Stop it.
But he's not the he's nowhere near, he's not crippling you. And the other thing is when you have a star running back, he sort of forces you to give him the ball. We saw it many times in the Adrian Peterson area of Minnesota. Their offense would be doing really well, and Peterson would pout on the sideline wanting more carries. And it's like, running backs who aren't paid that much, they're sort of happy with what they get. Whereas, when you have a superstar back there, you sort of have to earmark him carries independent of whether it's efficient or not.
And that's why the 49ers probably had the best model 1 year ago when they ran what we call a multi-back system as opposed to the one-back star system. When you think about those 3 running backs for the 49ers 1 season ago, and Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, Raheem Mostert, their production was almost identical to what Christian McCaffrey did, okay? 2,300 yards, all-purpose yards, 19 touchdowns, identical to what the backfield did with the San Francisco 49ers. However, the 49ers spent $6 million on 3 guys as opposed to 16 million on 1 guy. And it all but ensures that you're going to have at least one healthy runner each and every week. When you start to put so much money on one player, what happens when he begins to break down? So I think when you talk about team building, the 49ers have the better model.
And the Shanahans have a history of creating a great running game. Of now they've expanded their running game into different schemes. It's not just zone, it's gap. It's all this eye candy with end arounds and all that stuff. So you can kind of scheme up the running game, which is why 2 years ago Todd Gurley goes from having MVP hype to CJ Anderson literally gets up off his couch and is just as productive. I mean, nothing summed up the replaceability of running backs like the 2018 Rams and Todd Gurley and CJ Anderson.
The best running back to ever play for a Shanahan team was a 6th-round pick.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. What is the value to when you have a team that's bad like the Panthers now, having a superstar like Christian McCaffrey that sells jerseys, that gets fans in the stands? That's something we obviously have no interest in thinking about as a decision-making for teams, but does that actually play into a GM's decision?
That's a really good question, I think. What happens if the Panthers, like, let's say, the 2012 Vikings or something like, where they randomly have a good season and it's all based upon the running back going crazy when we know that's not sustainable? Is that really part of growing a team sustainably?
Oh, I mean, no, it's not. But like, they know right now that it's not going to be good. If you don't, if you let Christian McCaffrey walk or whatever, all of a sudden you're losing.
I will say that the marketing reason is definitely a better excuse than I need my running back to protect the quarterback by picking up the blitz. Like, if that is what you're relying on the running back for, you're already screwed. Running backs are almost universally terrible at pass blocking. Adrian Peterson was on the team of the decade. Adrian Peterson was a miserable pass blocker for his entire career for pretty much no reason. Like, the guy had no excuse for being as bad as he was. He was bad enough that the Vikings couldn't put him out there on 3rd downs, 3rd and long, obvious passing situations. So if that's your reason for, I can't get rid of running backs, I need this guy to pass block, like, you're already wasting everybody's time. That's a disastrous piece of logic.
And it's a better reason still than, hey, this guy's more than a running back. That's also bad reason. Like, that, just be upfront and say, look, he's a good receiver for a running back. He's still not worth 18 million, but we're paying him to be the leader of this organization that has, just lost its leader in Cam Newton. Like, I can at least buy the financial reasoning behind it. He is a super marketable guy. Like, there aren't a lot of players in the NFL, certainly non-quarterbacks, that are as marketable as Christian McCaffrey is. And you're currently paying your quarterback not a lot. So if you end up getting the high side of variance on Teddy Bridgewater, you may luck into having a decent season where people are also excited about the superstar. Whereas if you don't have a superstar like Christian McCaffrey, people, maybe lose interest.
All right, I only get you guys together like this, like never. So I've got all these questions that I just want to go through. One, I still don't know how Sam manages to be so angry. There's something about when he gets angry. I don't know why it is. I just start laughing and I think it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite parts.
Is this going to be a therapy session?
It is.
This is an intervention, Sam. This is an intervention.
This is fantastic. I love it. How he keeps that energy, I don't know. All right, here's question number 2. All right. So let's say that the draft goes as chalk, right? That Chase Young ends up going 2nd, Okudah goes 3rd to Detroit, and then the Giants come in with a curveball. All right. So they draft Isaiah Simmons, something like that. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Great athlete, play all over the field. Blake Martinez is the go tackle him every down. And then Simmons plays all over the field after that. Okay. So now tell me what happened. So do the Dolphins sit and stand pat? I tried my heart out to have them take somebody other than Tua at number 5. And with the other picks that they're going to have at 18 and 26, I could not make myself go anywhere other than Tua if he drops to 5. Is there any chance of that happening? Somebody else.
I mean, Herbert.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or are they like
50-50 odds right now?
Could you plug one of those 5 offensive tackles in there? And because in my mind, a little bit they're interchangeable, right? Everybody has their own opinion which one they like. But doesn't the quarterback position in general, even if there's a chance that he regains health and regains form and he's the guy that everybody, even if there's a chance that is, doesn't he have to go there?
Not taking Tua at 5 would be like being handed $100 bill, having to spend it on dinner, and buying a McDonald's quarter pounder with $100.
I mean, there's a real medical sort of risk that if he doesn't play a snap for you, you get fired as a GM sort of thing.
Yeah, but is that almost gets you an out though, right? I mean, if you're a GM and
he's been cleared,
he's been cleared.
It's still your decision.
It's still your decision, but there's a lot of excuses you can make. Also, I mean, there's a significant amount of evidence that Justin Herbert and Jordan Love are nowhere near as good as Tua. And also that they might not be available by the time you get to even your second first-round pick, let alone your third. So to Chris's point, there's like a real good chance he ends up being a good pro at the position. And I think you can't. There are only 2 of those players in this draft. I think if you get lucky enough to get that at 5, it's going to be really hard for them to pass up.
I mean, Sam Bradford got cleared medically by the Cardinals and then looked like butt cheeks. You can get cleared and not have it be the same sort of thing.
But I always hear that, the GM's afraid to draft Tua Tagovailoa because he might not play down, that he might get fired. There's zero chance that the GM is not having that conversation with the owner saying, hey, I want you to take a risk on Tua Tagovailoa. What is your opinion of this risk? And if he doesn't pan out, is my job on the line? I think that conversation has to be had because, the GM equally with the owner, with the doctors, is going to have a certain percentage chance this recurs. And I think you have to have that conversation. If your owner is like, dude, if he doesn't play, you're done. It's like, okay, then yeah, I'm definitely not going to take him. But I think there's going to be that conversation of hey, I'm going to take a risk on this kid. This is what we know about his injuries. How do you feel? And the owner's like, all right, let's do it. I feel like there has to be there's more collaboration than that whole idea of I did this. What'd you think? Oh yeah, you're fired. I hate you. I don't know.
No, you have to be proactive before you make those decisions. You do have to have that conversation with the owner because you have to be all in on whatever those expectations are. I think for the Miami Dolphins, remember they have a quarterback right now, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has been through this before. In 2003, when the Cincinnati Bengals took Carson Palmer with a first overall pick, that was a team was not ready to play a rookie quarterback. So Ryan Fitzpatrick, man, he took one for the team. He played in every single game. I apologize because it was actually John Kitna. But Ryan Fitzpatrick
played great.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is capable of doing this. He really is.
But you're right. I mean, Kitna, Fitzpatrick, they have one of those types of quarterbacks where if you needed him to play, Kitna did it for 4 teams. If you need him to play for one season, you're not going to be an absolute nightmare on offense. But that type of player would be okay with mentoring a quarterback who may be ready to play by week 8, might be ready by week 1. They're in a good spot where they don't have to be necessarily as desperate as some of these other teams.
Well, here's the question.
Mike and I were
could they win? Could they compete for a division title with Fitzpatrick if they spent all of their draft capital to build that team?
Yes.
7 wins might win the AFC East.
I agree. Mike and I were having the conversation today that this roster
what are you drinking?
This roster is so far away that trading down and trying to allocate future first-round picks to potentially put yourself in the Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, if your owner is not on board with Tua Tagovailoa and injury risk. Say the owner's like, dude, don't take him. I don't feel comfortable. Don't force yourself into Justin Herbert. Trade down, allocate future draft capital, and build up this roster and start Josh Rosen next year, who's younger than Joe Burrow, still not knowing what that guy can do. I don't know. I think the Miami Dolphins don't need a forced quarterback if they are in any degree uncomfortable with the injury because there's just no point in forcing it.
You bring up a great point, which is you can't stand pat at 5 with those 2 quarterbacks on the board and take a non-quarterback.
Oh, absolutely not.
Because you are absolutely burning all of the value in that pick.
Yes.
So you have to trade down, and I also, they have so many picks in this draft. I almost think that they try and trade for some more future assets, and you give yourself the opportunity, which Robert Mays said this to me a couple of days ago, which I thought was really interesting. You don't need to tank if you always have enough assets to go get your guy.
Yeah, it's good.
Right. So
I mean, who's the team that trades with them at 5 other than the Los Angeles Chargers?
The Patriots.
Panthers no, they got Teddy. I don't know. Saints, Renner thinks
the Saints will always trade up.
95%.
They're getting all the way up there.
Man,
All
but
in.
they have Taysom Hill though.
They're getting a DT. They're getting Derek Brown, number 5. I mean, they're going to trade up for either Derek Brown or Javon Kinlaw. I would, if I get odds on that right now, I'd take it.
And
that space isn't big enough to eat, though. That pick 5 isn't big enough.
I can't see the Patriots sort of mortgaging their future or going all in on any quarterback. They don't like to use a first-round pick on quarterbacks. They'll use a second-round pick, but I can't see them sort of, cobbling together picks just to move up to get Tua. I believe they like Tua, but not so much that they're willing to move up to get him at the top of the first round.
It's a new world in New England, though. They haven't had to waste a first-round pick. They've had Brady.
But trading up for Tua Tagovailoa is so much different than trading up for another quarterback, because now you're mortgaging even more draft capital to such a big injury risk.
And they don't have a second-round pick this year because of the Mohamed Sanu trade. I mean, this is a classic sort of take one for a year in New England sense, because if they're going to move up, what are they, 23? So they're going to go all the way up to 5. That's
No, probably not.
We have a New England Patriots question, don't we, Tyler? Let's fire this guy up, because there's a guy that we haven't talked about yet. I did a little research on Jarrett Stidham, and I've become a fan.
Stop.
What would need to happen for the Patriots to make the playoffs with Jarrett Stidham? Or if it's not possible, what's the most effective way for them to tank?
I think it's possible.
Stop.
Well, I do. What's possible?
Well, it's only going to take
Playoffs?
7 wins to win that division. So yes, it is possible.
Would need to happen for the
They have a
Patriots.
very good secondary still.
Mike, talk to me about Jarrett Stidham. I feel like no one knows anything about him. You obviously have spent more time scouting any of these guys.
So he came from an Auburn offense that was really like college-y, in quotation marks. They just ran a ton of screens. He wasn't particularly accurate, like at the intermediate level, which was like the kind of death knell, which we weren't fans of him for. But again, the Patriots offense doesn't attack like intermediate level a lot. It's a lot of underneath stuff and a lot of timing. And so he looked actually a lot better in the preseason last year than I expected. But again, it's preseason. A lot of guys have looked good in the preseason. So I don't know what to necessarily expect. But I do think it's not impossible for them to go to the postseason. Like the defense was on a historic pace last year, and they're always going to have a good defense under Bill Belichick. So if you have a good defense, you don't going to need much offensively to make the playoffs. So I don't think it's crazy.
Do we really see Buffalo as a perennial 10-win team?
You think they have a top 5 roster, Eric? So like,
I said if you
5.
take away the quarterback.
Yeah.
If you take away the quarterback, they have a pretty good roster. Yes.
You think Josh Allen is worse than Jarrett Stidham?
I think that they're comparable.
Oh my God.
The thing is,
And
look,
Stidham, Buffalo's roster's better.
There was a point in Stidham's career. He was really good as a true freshman at Baylor, like an 89 grade, coming out of Elite 11. He had a cannon.
We need to test this bourbon. I need to know what's in there. Need some of that.
Josh Allen improved his completion percentage like 6 percentage points last year, and was still only at 62.
Is this quarantine moonshine you're making?
Are we saying that Stidham is a playoff quarterback? Is that what we're saying here, George? Really?
There's always get on board with it.
There's always one team, that they have to play in the ESPN game in the morning. It has to be a not great team.
They get to play the AFC South champion Houston Texans, also 7-9.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
There are more playoff teams this year.
Oh,
here's a question though, Chris, because you have spent more time obviously with Bill Belichick than all of us combined by many, many times over. Is it totally out of the realm of possibility for him to not tank? Maybe tank's too strong, but play the odds and say, look, I want to make sure I have give myself a shot to have a top pick next year if things don't align?
Well, we've seen him with backup quarterbacks before win a lot of football games, right? When Brady was suspended, he won 3 out of 4 with 2 different quarterbacks and almost won 4 out of 4. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I always thought that 4th win without Tom Brady probably meant quite a bit to Bill Belichick. Now, he would never admit that, but going 4-0 after his suspension had to have meant a little something to him. So yeah, I don't think they could lose enough games to get into the Lawrence Fields battle. I don't think that at all. But when you go down the roster of the New England Patriots, right? And you didn't know they were the New England Patriots. You were just gonna, you're just gonna go. I've got Renner's thing here in front of me. So they have 1 blue player. They have 2 green players in Tooney and McCourty, and that's it. Now
it ain't good.
And a first-time quarterback on. Now I'm not saying they're not going to win games. I think they will win games, but it is not the kind of dream scenario as I look at their lineup. And we already saw last year, and that's to me is the big question going into this season. Was it, in fact, that the lineup had, and in particular the offense, and in particular the receiving core, had been diminished to the point that even Tom Brady didn't look good? Or was it that Tom Brady had slipped to the point, or was it some combination factor of that? But all of a sudden now we're going to go to Tampa Bay and they're going to draft a tight end a wide receiver or a tackle. And Tom Brady with much better receivers is going to look like Tom Brady again. I'm just going by our information here, guys, and it looks like a very ordinary roster as you look at it.
So that would be my biggest question as well, right? Because the thing that people always point to is Matt Castle in 2008 and the one you did, Chris, in 2016. Those were 2 of like the best teams of all time that those guys stepped into. Castle stepped in and that team was 16-0 the previous year, and then they went 11-5. And then that 2016 team, once Brady came back, they went like 10-1 or 11-1 and won the Super Bowl.
Brady was good the year before that, though.
What's that?
What? Brady was good the year before that, as opposed to last year.
He wasn't great, but the rest, like the whole roster, wasn't great last year. And even if Brady was back this year, I think you would still consider the Bills to be right there with the Patriots, even if Brady was the quarterback. Like it would be a legitimate debate in the AFC East. I think it's a massive question mark. And it's also rare to see the Patriots. They have all that with $13 million in dead money on Tom Brady. Like it's a whole different world in New England now. They never made, bad cap decisions and didn't have cap space to make moves and all that stuff. The roster is just in rough shape.
So wasn't Brady the difference between the Bills and the Patriots last year? Brady was the ultimate difference maker in terms of one team getting to the playoffs, or maybe one team winning the division, being better than the other. And now the Patriots without Tom Brady, one might argue they're on even footing, and we'll just have to wait to see who's going to win out. But I think I respect the Bills' defense, what Sean McDermott has been able to build. But the quarterback is so unproven, I don't know if they have an edge over Stidham or not. I really don't know.
I think the Bills offense has an edge over Stidham and the Patriots offense. I mean, that
Bold.
again, so I think how Kevin Cole, PFF analyst, talked about how they used Josh Allen specifically late in the season, got him running the football more, got it out of his hands more. They have better weapons now with Stephon Diggs. The offensive line is better than what New England's trotting now. I think the supporting cast is better in Buffalo, and assume Jared Stidham and Josh Allen are equal. I don't know if he would, but I mean, even then, I still like Buffalo to win that division. I don't know.
Little generous to Josh Allen, but remember 2018 with Trubisky, they had him running around. They surrounded him with great talent, and then in 2019, for whatever reason, he didn't run as much. Maybe the Bears were calling plays to try to see if he could be actually a passer in the NFL. He fell flat on his face. The question becomes is how much can you gimmick around a quarterback who isn't accurate? And in my opinion, it's probably about a year. You have the shelf life of about a year to gimmick around a quarterback who can't throw accurately to the receivers. And Buffalo did that, and they, were a one and done in the playoffs. Good for them. But I question whether or not that's going to be a tactic they can use in 2020.
All right, that leads me to my next question. Now, you guys, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I was trying to figure this one out today. So at number 6, let's say Tua does go to Miami, right? So now what do the Chargers do? You've got Anthony Lynn, who's kind of a guy who has lived and loved the running game during the course of his lifetime. He's got Tyrod Taylor, a guy he knows well, a little bit of experience with. He's watched Lamar Jackson win the MVP a year ago. This is a good team. The look I just gave at the Patriots. You look at the Chargers. Tell me where the major hole is on this team. They have tremendous receiving core, tremendous in the secondary. Maybe you still use an outside guy of some kind. They have 2 tremendous edge rushers. Is it possible that they pass on whatever, just go get their tackle and live on, and that Justin Herbert falls down, and shockingly, that nobody wants to even think about, the Carolina Panthers, because Simmons has already been taken in my draft, they jump up and take this Cam Newton style, big body, big strong arm Justin Herbert to throw it all over the field in Matt Rule's Baylor type offense?
I think they take a quarterback. I just think the team is so good in so many different areas, like what you just described, that they've got to go ahead and leverage that and go with a quarterback like a Justin Herbert. I'm not as big a believer in Herbert as maybe some other people are, but he does have a big-time arm. He moves very well. If you're coaching really well and surround him with the talent they have, then they may be able to transition him early and help him develop into becoming a really good quarterback. Because they're so good in so many other areas, I think they may be inclined to take a flyer on one of the young quarterbacks.
I think this is where we see Jordan Love come off the board. I don't think they're interested. I don't know if they're interested in Justin Herbert.
I'm not going there.
Panthers?
No, to the Chargers. I think they're either take the quarterback they like, whether it's Justin Herbert or Jordan Love, or they trade down. And I think that it's not there's a non-0% chance they like Love over Herbert. I don't think that's crazy. I think they could like Love over Herbert.
To quote Austin Gale, stop.
Wouldn't even let you say that.
That tells you all you need to know about Justin Herbert, in my opinion, right? Like, Jordan Love is a guy that his accuracy and his decision making, we've written about it ad nauseum. It's not what you're looking for. You are in a situation, you just described Cam Newton is available.
Yeah.
Like, if you put an average quarterback on this team, their roster aside from the quarterback is top 5.
That's right.
And I don't know why you wouldn't say, hey, look, we can either find a team that likes Herbert or Love that will trade up. We get more capital. Or you take wide receiver 1 or offensive tackle 1. You sign Cam Newton if he's healthy, or you go after Jameis Winston and you go, look, we're gonna give this a shot. Like, Pat Mahomes got injured last year. Things happen. You have a talented enough roster to compete. I don't see why you go sign, why you bring Chris Harris Jr. in to just have Justin Herbert come in and airmail it all over the field.
I think if I were to guess, my best guess of the Chargers playing right now is they're making a play for Tua. Like, they're making a play. I think he is that guy. They're going to give up some draft capital to go get him because they have a roster. It's good enough to win. They think so, and that he could be the missing piece. But if they don't, they know they still have options on the table in the way of Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, trade for Andy Dalton, whatnot. Like, I think that's there. But if you sign one of those guys right now, then you have this crowded quarterback room. You spend a lot of money there. I think they're waiting till after the draft to see how that falls. If they don't get to him, Miami gives more, better offer, goes up and gets them. I think then it's one of the offensive tackles.
But you know what? One of the things is that Brian Flores has plenty of time, right? I mean, he's on the right track. They have a plan. They have a gazillion draft choices this year. They got it going on, right? Whereas, and I don't know, and I love Anthony Lynn. He's one of my favorite guys in the league. He absolutely is. I don't know how much longer Anthony Lynn has the ability to say, I'm going to draft a quarterback, I'm going to play Tyrod Taylor, and then I'm going to, try to go on from there. I mean, is there more pressure right now? And the Carolina Panthers on the flip side of that as well, have all the time in the world. I mean, they just signed Matt Rule. So, and they've got
Christian
all new
McCaffrey.
people. Yeah, they've got all the time in the world to develop a quarterback. Where I feel like there's more pressure on the Chargers to take this great roster, take the quarterback they have, try and protect him, try and do whatever, and play with what they have. Or trade. I could see them trading out of there, but if they had to take a shot, I could definitely see them taking an Andrew Thomas or one of those tackles and taking a shot at it this year.
Yeah, I think the dream scenario for the Chargers is the situation that Renner kind of panned out in terms of they don't have enough capital or don't end up trading up to grab Tua Tagovailoa, and then they trade out of that number 6 spot for a team that wants Herbert or just Jordan Love if they're feeling interested, and then allocates more capital to build up the roster. Or if they aren't going to trade down out of 6, getting Andrew Thomas or Jerry Jeudy to add to this roster. Jordan Love is what I think could happen, but what they should do is probably steer clear of the quarterback position entirely if they can't get Tua and build up that roster.
Tua is the only quarterback in the draft that's capable of contributing this year to a winning team. And so if they don't get him, they probably hedge their bets, trade back, and if they don't have success this year on the field, they'll have enough capital to go up and get their guy in 2021.
I think Tua is the one quarterback that sort of changes what they're planning on doing. In that I don't know that up until the last few weeks they thought they would have really had a shot at him. And I think if they do, that they'll take him. They'll take Tua and they'll look to build around him for the future. I honestly think if they don't get Tua, they're going to roll with Tyrod Taylor. I think they have this plan on attacking the Chiefs by doing the opposite, right? And they've done this kind of before. You know, when they played the Ravens, they went about it backwards, right? They went small instead of big to stop the run. I think to compete with the Chiefs, they're not going to try and do what the Chiefs do, which is
winning,
you know, all high octane offense, great quarterback. I think they're going to try and build a running attack and build this, you know, Buffalo style offense from when Tyrod Taylor was the quarterback. And, you know, Tyrod Taylor, he's very limited, right? He's clearly not in Patrick Mahomes' stratosphere of playing quarterback, but he can be a viable quarterback in the right kind of offense. And I think they know how to build that type of system.
But their 3 best players are receivers.
Sure.
So like you all of a sudden, when you describe that type of offense, you make me now I'm not as excited about their roster.
You make George want to risk it all for Jameis, frankly.
So that's the thing. Like in today's NFL, right? Jameis Winston is a capable starter. Cam Newton is a capable starter. Andy Dalton is a capable starter, and none of those guys have starting jobs right now. Like Jameis Winston's at worst the 3rd best quarterback in this draft class, knowing what we know about him in the NFL and with the money you would have to pay him, right? So I don't think we're at a point in the NFL right now. I think there's so many capable starters in the world right now that you don't have to force a Justin Herbert or a Jordan Love and just hope that they're good. Like 5 or 10 years ago, and Andy Dalton was like the cutoff. It was tough to find an Andy Dalton. There's 32 of them. There's 35 of them right now. You don't have to force a quarterback that's not that good beyond Burrow and Tua.
Did you
and
see
that
the video on
evaluation of
social media,
Jameis,
Steve?
that evaluation of Jameis doesn't even include how much he's been training this offseason with the swinging balls and stuff. Like, I mean, you have to think he's got that much better.
Who
the
else has
LASIK
been
surgery
training
and
with
that stuff
swinging
too.
The LASIK too. He had LASIK.
It's big. It's big. You got to consider significant improvements in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, Renner's been training with butt cheeks, and you've been training with swinging balls. That's where
we are now.
Incredible combination.
Time for Chris's next question, I think.
I think you guys have been locked up too long.
You think?
Hang on. The single most important question we have to answer regarding Tua Tagovailoa is, has Eric learned to say it yet?
Yeah, Eric,
True. Can you practice? Eric, can you practice?
What's the Alabama quarterback's name?
Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh.
Look, I majored in math, not
If it's not a
pronunciation.
number, he doesn't care.
And he's the doctor in the house.
He's cell 17 in the spreadsheet. That's what he's called.
All right. I do have another question. You ready for this one? So the Washington Redskins. So we get a new regime in there. You get Rivera. We get the whole thing. 2-part question. One, Trent Williams still is in limbo. Is that right? We still don't know what Trent Williams is going to do. And is there any chance that they would take a shot at Tua given the fact that Dan Snyder is widely thought of as being the guy that really made the play for Haskins. So are you really ready to give up on Haskins and not take a Chase Young or in that situation because the owner has sort of put his stamp on the other guy?
You're not giving up on Dwayne Haskins by taking Tua. You're increasing your chances of ending up with, regardless of the name on the back of the jersey, a quarterback that you can trot out in the playoffs and win a game. And until you have that, it does not matter. It doesn't matter if you have Chase Young. So to me, that's not even a question. You either take Tua or you trade down, because that's where the value in that pick is.
You're going to hurt
Here's the
Dwayne's
question that I
feelings,
think
though,
is
George.
more.
Yeah.
The question really is, would you trade the best edge player in the entire league to double your chances of getting a franchise quarterback?
Yes.
It's even worse than that, because right now you're asking, would you trade the best edge player in a draft class to double your chances of getting a franchise quarterback? And I think all of us would do that, independent of whether Chase Young is good, and he very likely will be good. But when you get to make the choice of either or Haskins or Tua being a franchise quarterback, the probability is so much higher that that's going to come up true than just one of the two independently.
Well, Mike's point is a good one, right? So, Mike, your point is, how can two guys coexist in a competition without their ego being hurt?
There's never been a quarterback competition where one guy didn't get his feelings completely butthurt and quit football altogether.
I'm sorry.
Steve Young and Joe Montana?
If you can't handle a quarterback competition in the summer,
then you're not my guy.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I will say, though, realistically, once they traded for Kyle Allen, it's not going to happen. Like, you gave up a 5th rounder for Kyle Allen, which, whatever, that was a ridiculous move in the first place. But it's not going to – you're not going to draft a quarterback after that.
I mean, a 5th rounder for a good backup's fine, but if the strategy is – you're not trying to find a quarterback, you're trying to find the quarterback. It's just – because a lot of people think – like Buffalo's still saying, hey, we have Josh Allen, we made the playoffs, we spent the 1st-round pick on him a couple of years ago. Even if a Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, and better guys are out there, a lot of teams just get locked into, I drafted this guy, I'm stuck with him for at least 4 years, let's go. But if teams truly say, I'm going to find the quarterback until I know I have the guy, I'm going to keep looking. You know, if Washington does draft Tua, and the 2-year view is like, oh, we spent a pick on Haskins, we spent a pick on Tua, and we found Tua. Like, 2 first-round picks to find your guy is nothing in the grand scheme of things. So, yeah, you got to keep taking swings at it.
This is a classic sort of should versus would, though, right? Like, should they take another quarterback because they're still not sure they have the guy? Probably. I think there's at least a discussion to be had with the whole, 2-1 butthurt loser type of deal. But they're not going to. Like, they've got Haskins. It was Schneider who made them go for Haskins. They definitely aren't giving up on him after 1 year. The only way teams are going to do that, they're going to go one after the other until there's a reason to do otherwise. And the reason to do otherwise last year was it was such a massive upgrade from Rosen to Kyler Murray that you have to make that move. It's not that dramatic an upgrade from Haskins to Tua, if it is one at all, because we don't even know if Tua is healthy. So there's no way.
Let's pause for a second, though, and look at what makes this possible for Washington. Washington played the draft pretty well a season ago, staying at 15, not trading up. Basically, if Haskins fell to them, great. If not, we'll take another player. The prospect of actually moving on from him is not as dire because they didn't spend 6 draft picks to move up and get him. They spend 1. That's a good, I would say, story for, say, the Miami Dolphins or the Los Angeles Chargers, at 5 or 6 this draft with respect to Tua.
So is it better off, though, even if Miami – so I can make a pretty strong case, and Sally, I think you back me up on this. Playing quarterback in the NFL is so hard. I mean, it is so hard to understand. I mean, first of all, you're just getting the playbook. Guys would get in the huddle, rookie quarterbacks, and couldn't even spit the play out. And everybody's looking at him like, oh, my God, why are we wasting our time with this guy? Tua is not that guy. He has experience. He has a lot of college stuff. But he also has that injury. Are you better off, even if you are Miami or Washington in the case of this discussion, are you better off not playing him for a year, just letting him get totally healthy, letting him learn all there is to learn about playing, and then in year 2, plug him in the way that they've done a lot of successful quarterbacks in the day.
Yeah, I think they would be better off if you're Miami taking Tua, but being very happy that you have a quarterback like Ryan Fitzpatrick, because that buys you more time to help develop and groom a young quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa and get him ready mentally as well as physically. The doctors can clear you from this kind of injury and say, okay, you're ready to go back in there. But Chris, you and I both know that it takes time for the body to heal from what was a traumatic injury. It wasn't a mild injury. It was a traumatic physical moment for him. And so I think there's going to be time for him to develop mentally as well as physically, get him used to the game at this level before you throw him out there. And you also want to make sure that the team around him is prepared to protect him and allow him to put his best foot forward when he steps on the field to be able to produce. I think that's the real dream scenario. And I think the Dolphins have a really good scenario for drafting Tua Tagovailoa, buying some time, and then putting him out there when he can put his best foot forward.
With that being said, though, I mean, you think about the current situation with COVID-19, there aren't going to be rookie OTAs or offseason programs anytime soon. Thinking about a quarterback, a rookie quarterback that can move the needle for you this season, they're not going to have a ton of opportunities before maybe August, September, that they're actually going to be able to work with the team. So, like, outside of Joe Burrow, are you really confident in any of the quarterbacks after them being able to come into a franchise, come into a program with a couple weeks of opportunities to work with the team to be good this year? I don't know. And I think that puts you more in a situation to stay away from trading up for a guy that's like Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Herbert, because those quarterbacks are just simply not going to have any time to work with these new teams. And I think it would be very difficult hinging, or placing a ton of bets, like say the Los Angeles Chargers moving up from 6 to 3 or 2 to get Tua and finding out very quickly that he's not going to throw to Mike Williams for another 2 months. Like that's a big part of it as well.
Well, in 2011, that was sort of the same thing, right? When they had the lockout, and it's exactly what you said. The only quarterback that had any sort of success was Cam Newton, who's the first pick. The rest of the other guys had to wait quite a bit of time just for that reason. And I think even though offenses are probably easier to adapt to now than they were back then, you're probably still going to see the same thing happen, which, makes it tough for the Chargers when you're trying to draft a quarterback to win now.
I have to give credit to Andy Dalton because he was a second-round pick that year, took the Bengals to the playoffs, and was a day one starter. So that tells you about the learning curve for a young quarterback. You have to be able to come in and take over a locker room and step into that huddle and command the respect of those other guys. Not easy to do.
Solly, the only reason that happened, though, is because he had Bruce there.
Where's Bruce?
Where's
Bruce?
Bruce
was the ultimate glue guy.
That's right.
Bruce will be on the next cocktail hour. All right, we're about to close it out here. We'll probably do this again because this was fun. It gives us all an excuse to grab a beverage. I'm going to get a workout in after this. I just want to let you guys know. I think it's important that
I think we already knew, George,
that a tequila is not going to keep me from getting a workout. It shouldn't keep you guys either. Anyone have any parting thoughts or words before we hang out?
I feel like I'm FaceTiming you in a relationship right now, George. You have your hand over your head. You're laying down.
Leave you guys alone.
Yeah, Jesus.
Well, you got me all excited talking about butt cheeks. So,
all right, guys, good stuff.
All right, we'll catch you guys later. Peace,
Peace guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.